Welcome back to Jordan's Everyday DIY. In this episode, I am going to show you how I make my wood signs, and Brett and I are going to walk you through how you can do it without having major power tools in your home. So stay tuned.
All right, so Melissa's in the process of showing you how to do one of her signs if you don't have access to a lot of tools. So what I want to show you today is kind of how I've done what I figure are really simple frames. I happen to purchase a 1x2 Select Pine, it's called, at Home Depot. It's a little bit better than some of the furring strips. I just struggle with the furring strips and things. A lot of people use those. That's fine if that's the look you're going for, but they're just hard to really find nice straight ones. So since this is a little bit larger sign we're going to do, I typically go to the Select Pine. A few more bucks per stick, but it's a little straighter, a little bit better material in my opinion. So what I'm going to do is, I know that Melissa's sign, I'm going to turn here my back to the camera and I'm going to draw this on the board. I know that Melissa's sign is 30 inches high. By 32 wide. Now, the way I do the frames is I make them really simple. I'm going to take two pieces of the 1x and I'm going to cut them 35.5 inches long, and I'll explain why. So those are going to be my frames on the bottom. Okay? Then I'm going to frame the bottom and top, sorry. Then I'm going to cut two more that are actually 30 inches, the same as the sign. Those will go in here. Now, since a 1x2 is really 1.5 inches wide, I added 3 inches to this for 1.5 inches and 1.5 inches. That got me to 35. And I want this to overhang just about 1/4 inch on each end, so I added another 1/2 inch. So 35.5 inches is what I want to cut those. So what this will look like when it's put together is this leg will come down, and where this one butts up to it, it'll overhang just a little bit. So you'll have that detail right there on the corners. So I'm going to go over and I'm going to chop these on my saw, but I can tell you how you can get these cut at your local Home Depot. All right, so here we are. This is the Select Pine that I was mentioning. I happened to get this at Home Depot. Now, I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe that Lowe's and Menards, and this is not a knock on Lowe's and Menards, I don't believe they'll cut wood for you. Home Depot will. And not only will they cut plywood pieces for you, and I think Melissa showed you that earlier in this video, that they'll cut your sign to size. They will also cut these to length. So if you know that you're going to do a 30 by 32 inch sign, you can go in there and say, hey, look, I need 2 of these at 35.5 inches and 2 at 30 inches, and they'll cut them for you. So let's get these cut. Okay, now that I've got these frame pieces cut, I'm going to do my best to kind of show you how I will lay out her sign. Now, Melissa's inside painting her sign at the moment, so I have some fill-in materials here. It's not the exact same size as her sign, but I'll show you how this goes together. So I will need, you will need, if you're using a 1/2 inch sandy plywood, which is really good for these signs. It gives some nice rigidity to it. It's fairly flat as opposed to some of the, like an AC fir or something like that, a plywood you can get. I would challenge you to kind of get something that's nice and flat and has a pretty good surface on it. You don't need to go to maples or anything like that. Maple plywoods, it's too much money, but the 1/2 inch sandy that you can buy, SANDE, is pretty good wood for this. So this is the thickness, 1/2 inch, that Melissa's inside painting on. So I'm going to use a couple of, you can use anything that's 1/4 inch thick that you have. That's what this is. This is a 1/4 inch thick material. And I'll set this on top to get 3/4 of an inch finish height. Because my frames, this 1x2, remember it's not exactly 1x2, it's actually 3/4 inch by 1.5. I want to get this fairly flushed out like I have now. So when I get her sign, my sides, which are 30 inches, will flush out with the bottom of this and go right there. My top and bottoms, remember, are going to overhang about 1/4 of an inch. So they'll go on the bottom of this right there. Now what I do to connect these is I buy Luan. This is about 3/16 of an inch thick. You can buy this in a sheet. You can have it ripped, like I said, into like 2-inch strips, 3-inch strips, whatever you prefer. You could also use like a heavy gauge cardboard. If you see, like you can buy, sometimes when you buy pictures at some of these home goods stores type or home type stores, it comes with like a real kind of a dense cardboard on the back, covers the clips and things like that. A material like that would also work. And what I'll do is I'll take this happens to be 2 inches wide. I'll lay it 1 inch on the frame and 1 inch onto the picture itself on the back. And I'll go along and I will staple to the picture and to the frame this all along the perimeter of the picture. That'll hide any kind of light that might bleed through. You want to try to keep this frame nice and tight against the 1/2 inch because there's no physical connection to the 1/2 inch. It's only connected through staples that go through this Luan or cardboard into the frame and the back of the picture, if that makes sense. So I happen to use a pneumatic stapler. You can use a hand stapler. I would suggest probably no less than a 1/2 inch staple, maybe a 9/16 inch staple would be best. Just gonna have to really lean into it and crank that thing down, but it'll staple through this Luan and it'll definitely go through the cardboard. I'd use 1/2 inch if you're using a cardboard. So that's how I will assemble this together once she's done with that sign. Hope this helps.
As far as painting my signs go, I typically will either paint the background black, dark gray, or white. The sign that I'm working on today, I'm going to do in black. And again, typically I use the Behr Ultra paint. I really like that. I just get a solid black color. But for my fall signs, I went to Ace and I picked up the Magnolia Home Paint. And I am loving this fine black. It's not so stark. And I got it in the eggshell. So I am really liking this paint for my signs, and that's what I'm gonna use today. I also like to have these rags on hand. We'll always just cut up Brett's old t-shirts and use this. You wanna make sure that you wipe down your sign really good before you start painting it. I always use a foam roller on my signs, so it just gives it a really nice smooth texture when you roll it out like that. And then a tip that I use for my paint, I have a smaller tray, and instead of always having to clean this thing out, I will just take foil and put it down first and then pour my paint in here, and it makes for a really easy cleanup when I'm done.
All right, well, we're back out in the barn. Melissa has painted this sign. We don't have anything on it yet, but we're gonna go ahead and get this framed so we can show you that. As I mentioned before, anything as a spacer that you have that's 1/4 inch, if you're using 1/2 inch plywood, anything that's 1/4 inch works, just that'll hold this up off the table, because we are going to take these 3/4 inch pieces that I cut yesterday, or that you can have cut like we mentioned at Home Depot. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, and I just want to explain too, when he said anything a 1/4 inch, right now he has another piece of wood under there that's a 1/4 inch thickness. You could use, like, what did I say?
Like a foam board, anything 1/4 inch.
But I didn't quite understand what he meant by that. I've actually never come out here and watched him do these frames.
You learn something new every day.
Yeah, they just magically appear. So I'm excited. And another thing, we went to Home Depot and we're going to show you some video on it, but they will cut any piece of wood for you up to 10 cuts.
Well, most Home Depots. He
Most
said it
Home
may
Depots.
vary, but they'll do a number of cuts for you. So like on a sheet of plywood, you can buy a 4x8 sheet. Remember, this is a 30x32 sign. You could get 3 of these signs out of that and they would cut it for you.
Right.
And you'd have a couple of drops. You could do some small signs or whatever.
Yeah, so it really is affordable to do it that way. And if you don't have power tools at home, that is the way you can get away with that. So you can get your board cut and you can get your frame pieces cut as well.
So we have the 1/4 inch spacer underneath this, laying face down. I have, like I said, the pieces that we stained. We're going to put those also face down. I'm going to start with the bottom. If you recall, we cut this extra wide so that it overhangs the sides. So we'll just put these sides on there like that. I just tend to eyeball it. I got about a 1/4 inch overhang each side now. Remember I mentioned yesterday, or earlier in this video, you didn't know it was yesterday, about some Luan, or you can use a heavy gauge cardboard or something like that would probably work. If the sign starts getting too big, I don't know how reliable the cardboard would be, but something small, it should work pretty good. So we're gonna take these pieces of Luan, and you can cut these to length with any handsaw. Also, you don't need power tools for it.
But you probably could get that cut at Home Depot as well, correct?
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier, I think.
Okay.
So what we're gonna do is lay that over the frame, and I'm going to use an air stapler. Again, we'll use a hand stapler here in just a minute. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shoot this into the frame at first.
Aren't you glad I'm here to help you?
Yes, thank you. And now I'm gonna try to push in on this painted sign really hard. I'm gonna try to push it into this corner before I staple into the sign. Just wanna try to get a really nice tight fit on that. So wherever you can hold it,
And what's nice about the way that he's doing it, and the reason why he's doing it this way, is so that we're not seeing any nail holes on the side. We're gonna show you in a minute if you don't have the capability to do this and you just wanna nail it. We're gonna show you a way to do that too, but I really like it this way. It's super clean and we don't have any nail holes on the sides.
right. And I think I mentioned the other day, we can use a hand stapler. I think you got to put a little bit more into this. These are 3/8 inch staples that I have in here. And you can see that'll also go through this Luan nicely. It'll definitely go through any cardboard. So you don't have to have an air nailer. So I'm going to go ahead and do this other side. Make sure I got the right piece. And again, the whole time I try to keep consistent pressure, pushing in on the painted surface and on the frame so that you get a nice tight fit. All right, so there's the finished product. Little 1/4 inch overhang on each side. The Luan on the back also covers any light that might bleed through where the painted surface meets the frame. And again, there's no physical connection to the plywood from this other than through the staples and the Luan on the back. So this particular frame is what's called kind of on flat. It's the wider way, or the visual surface is the wider piece of the pine. You can also do, if you want, on edge, which is a frame that would look like this. You can tack that together with finish nails and a hammer if you don't have any kind of power tools or something to do that with, or nailers. And if you don't do the Luan on the back, you can also just nail a painted surface to the front of this if you like. And then Like this one is just the same frame we did on edge, same method, Luan in the back, and just a thinner frame around the surface.
And the reason why we put this frame this way is because this was a canvas print that I had done a couple of years ago of my our cute little grandson at Costco. So if you guys are looking for anything like that, it's photo props to our son Blake, who took this picture, and we just sent it to Costco, and they had it printed out on this really cool canvas for us. So.
And the frame it's mounted on is about 1 inch thick. So obviously you couldn't lay this 3/4 inch material on flat like this. You had to put it up on edge to give us that little bit of relief around the perimeter of the picture. So.
And then the last thing I just wanted to share about my signs. So I've been making signs for years. And how I have been doing it is with this graphite paper. This is really inexpensive. You can pick it up at an art supply store. I got mine at Hobby Lobby. It comes in black and white. And the reason why you would want the different colors is black would not show up on a black painted surface. So I use the white on all of my dark colors and then the black on all of my white and light colors. And you just print out your words on the computer, and then you put this graphite paper underneath the paper, and you can do your sign that way. You trace it out, yep, and then you paint it in. So that is super time consuming. I highly recommend, if this is something you want to get into doing, using a vinyl cutter. So I have my Silhouette, and I love it. It took me 3 years to get the courage to take it out of the box and to try to learn how to use it, but I love it. And so that's what I'm gonna be doing on this sign. I'm making some Christmas signs now, so I'm gonna go ahead and just print out my vinyl for this. Oh, one other thing I wanted to say too is you totally could do a sign and not frame it. I have a lot of signs in my house that I've made that I don't even put the frame. So I hope that this helped you. I know so many of you want to make these signs and you feel like you don't have the right tools to be able to do it. So hopefully we shared some tips with you. And if you have any questions about what we did, if we didn't make it understandable for some reason, just let us know. We would love to chat with you. Yep.
Hit that subscribe button if this helped you out. Pass it on to friends. This was one actually that we had several requests to do, so hopefully this will help you out.
Yep. Stay blessed.
Stay blessed.